Yeah,
I'm
I
going to
would
take a
say that
shot.
human behavior can change. It can change. But if you change from morality X to morality Y, which one of those moralities is correct or right or wrong, and what determines that? What's the foundation?
So you jump 10 steps ahead. Now we're talking what's morality, okay. Let's go. See, you set him up, I'm going to knock him down.
Go ahead.
What's going on here is we're discussing whether human routine, human behavior can change. We'll go to the moral. I do believe people can change. It's rare. It's 1%. It's tough. If you throw a guy in jail for 30 years for killing a guy, is he better when he comes out? Did he learn his lesson? Of course he did. He's going to be more of a killer. I don't believe in change like we're talking about, but is it possible? Of course it is. Now, morality.
Yeah.
Who has morals?
I would say that every human being has morals, but not every human being has a justification for their morals.
I
Like,
think a lot of people have a justification. Go ahead. Go ahead.
well, me too. I would say a lot of people have justification, but not everyone does. I would say the majority do, but not everyone. Like all people. Example would be if I ask an individual, why is murder wrong? And they say, well, my family told me that's how I was raised. Is that a good reason for believing that murder is wrong? I would say no, because your parents could have raised you to be a murderer. And then you would say, hey, it's right because I was raised that way. If I say, why is murder wrong? And someone else says, well, because my society says it's wrong. Well, let's use that. If your society said that murder was right, does that make it right? And it goes on, it goes on, it goes on. Whatever reason you give for stating why you think XYZ is wrong, then if you apply that to anything else and you deny its logical entailment, then that would mean that you're inconsistent. So I would say a lot of people are inconsistent, but some aren't.
The perfect example is a martyr, right? If you are Muslim or you are an extremist of a certain religion, if I tell you, hey, if you kill this Gentile, this infidel in the name of God, right? That's okay, right? And you will commit this act, right? And is it moral? In our opinion, it's not. However, right, in the religion of what they follow, it is the best thing you can do. You're gonna go down in history as a martyr, right? You killed all these fucking non-believers, right? And you're a martyr, right? Now, right? And that's a moral thing, right? Very good question. A moral thing. Now we're going back to the question of can we change? Can we not change? We're both in the same boat about this, I think. We're both in the same
Yeah,
boat.
yeah. It's a good
Uh,
discussion. Yeah.
why are you so you're very well spoken, my friend. You know
it's
that,
it's all
right?
it's all the reading. It's all the reading. I can't help it.
Hey, can I ask you where are you from, man?
Jamaica. I'm from Jamaica.
And I'm an astronaut. Where the fuck are you from?
Okay, so my accent is being put on because I'm talking to you, but I can turn it off. Talk like one Jamaican. Me come from Jamaica. My name Everton. Me come from the west side of Jamaica. I don't know if you understood what I said.
My friend, do you
I,
think you are the only guy that can do this with your accent? Do you think
oh,
I'm like Eastern
amazing.
European and I can talk to you like this too, my friend? This is not my first how you say rodeo, as you Americans say. This is not my first rodeo.
So
Okay, you want to
what's your
talk like this?
where are you originally from?
My parents are European. They're from Poland.
Yeah, so the reason why I have an accent is because I worked in the hotel industry for 10 years and I had to speak like this when I was talking to the customer. So it became a second nature.
Me and my friends call this the customer service voice,
Yeah. That's what it is. There's a
and
language
we also.
barrier. If I come on here with my Jamaican accent, most people won't know what
Oh,
I'm saying. So I just
no, of course not. Of course not.
yeah.
We also call it the voicemail voice. It's the voicemail voice. It's how you leave a voicemail. Like, hello, my name is Alexander.
Yeah,
Please call me. You know what I'm talking about,
because
right?
you got to speak clearly so that the person can't say, "Well, I didn't really hear what you said in the voice note." Oh boy. Well, this
Hey,
was a good
let's.
conversation, though. Is your name Dane?
Well, yes, sir.
My name is Everton. It was lovely talking to you, Dane.
Wait, hold up. Say it again. What's your name?
Everton. Everton. It's a very
Everton.
common Jamaican name. Everton.
Everton. Everton.
Yep, that's me.
Everton. You're not about to skip me. You're not done with me just yet, are you?
Well, I'm not gonna skip you abruptly. I was just giving you a heads up that it was nice talking to you. I'm gonna go because I have to write a sermon for tomorrow.
Can I talk to you for like 2 more minutes,
Sure. Go ahead.
please? Because I haven't had a mature conversation like this. Trust me, all night, all night.
Okay,
So
so
I just
it's your turn to ask me questions then.
now, my friend. So I don't want to get too heavy. We hit that moral kind of human behavior thing.
Yeah.
We can go to religion. We can go to human behavior again. I really want to pick your brain, Everton. I really want to do that. I really want to pick your fucking brain.
Go ahead.
Really. Okay. Were you raised religious?
Yeah, I was raised in I was raised in Jamaica. Jamaica is a religious country. We're predominantly Christian. I grew up in a home where I had a Christian mom and a non-Christian dad, but my dad was a PK, preacher's kid, so he had biblical moral ethics. And me and my siblings, we grew up in a home that portrayed biblical moral ethics, Christian moral ethics. So I would say it's a mix. Grew up with parents, one Christian, one not, so it's a mix.
Can I ask you, when did you come to the States?
I've never been to the States. I've and that's not a lie. That's not a lie. Tourism industry in Jamaica, we have a lot of people from America, Canada, England who come here. So if you're Jamaican who works in the hotel industry, you're going to end up with an accent. So I have a lot of European influence, but I've never been to the European countries.
You're killing me. You're killing me, bro.
Never
Do you
been
understand?
there.
I'm literally dying in front of you. Do you understand that?
But I want
You've
to go one
never
day.
said.
I would love to go to Central Park. I love to run, so I would love to run the entire Central Park one of these days. And I would like to go to the Empire State Building. I would like to go to DC. I'd like to visit New York during the daytime because I hear there's a lot of mugging that goes on in the nighttime. So there's a few places I would like to go, but haven't been there yet.
And it's always New York. And so, what about Canada? You've been to Canada?
Never been, never been. If I ever go to Canada, when I used to think about going there, it was always to go there and experience the martial arts that Canada teaches because it's very well known for martial arts. Very well known
I
for
had
that.
no idea. Really?
Yeah, like jujitsu, taekwondo. Particularly, they're the best in the world in jujitsu, I think. Yeah, so I'd like to go there for that.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm so enthralled. I might be your worst enemy, bro. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm gonna grill you like a New York strip. I'm sorry, bro. I am so speechless. I don't even know where to begin, bro. Okay, what's going on here?
I'm not a common
Um,
Jamaican. I'm not common. Trust me, I'm not. You would not meet
and
Jamaicans who are like
trust me, I
this.
can tell.
I'm not
Trust me, I can
common.
tell. Um, Pardon my ignorance. in Jamaica,
Yeah.
is it a dialect of English that they speak
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
with okay.
The official
Um,
language of Jamaica is English, but it's broken English. It's Africanized English.
Africanized English. And do you speak any other languages besides that?
No, I don't speak any other language. However, I am learning Greek because as a Christian upcoming pastor, I kind of have to know the Greek language and the Hebrew language. So I'm currently learning Greek. So I got this. This is a Greek New Testament, and probably won't know what the words are saying, but I can actually read that
Of course not.
because I study Greek. So
But why are you being involved with Hebrew if you're being a Catholic, or excuse me, a Christian pastor?
why am I what with Hebrew?
I kind of know the answer, but you're interested in Hebrew,
Oh,
but I understand you are trying to be a Christian pastor.
so Christian pastor, as a pastor, you are going to be preaching the Bible every week and teaching from the Bible, counseling from the Bible. But one thing that a lot of Christians are afraid to admit is that the translations of the Bible are filled with errors all over the place. For the most part, there are not errors, but in very, very important areas of the Bible, I would say, if you don't know the original languages, you can be misled because the English translations are limited in their expression of the Greek and Hebrew because English is an inferior language to Greek and Hebrew, particularly Greek because Greek is more expressive. So you have to know those languages if you're going to teach the Bible so that you can be accurate in how you teach and what you teach.
Is Greek Latin based?
Well, no, not Latin based. Um, Even when you look
So
at the history of the transmission of the Bible with translation and stuff, the first translation, well, uh, the first translation that was used by the church predominantly was Latin Vulgate.
that's why I ask.
Yeah, but before that, we had the Greek and the Hebrew. The Latin Vulgate is actually a translation of the original Greek and Hebrew Old Testament by Saint Jerome. So knowing what the original said, you can compare the Latin Vulgate with the original and see if the Latin Vulgate falls short in any place or any verse or any chapter. So it's important to know
And
those
of
languages.
course, it's lost in translation, of course.
Yeah, yeah. So
However, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm sorry.
no, no. Go ahead, go ahead. I was gonna actually
However,
state exactly what you just said. Things can get lost in translation.
now, as a pastor, I understand that you believe in both the New Testament and the Old Testament,
That's correct.
and you will preach this.
That's correct.
When I say this, I understand you're a man of God. I'm sorry. Did you text me something? I didn't see this. Hold up.
No, that was my name. That was my name.
Oh, yeah, Everton. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't have my glasses on. I'm sorry.
I thought that when you spelled it out, it was actually the message you were looking at. So this whole time, I thought you
Okay,
actually saw the the message. It's okay though. So I do. So
Everton.
I believe both testaments, and I preach them both.
You really believe in the Old Testament of the Bible, the Christian Bible.
Yeah,
Is that what
yeah.
you're saying?
Because
And you
I
will
make a
preach this?
distinction. I make a distinction between what the Bible teaches and what the Bible records. So I heard this question before. I don't know if that's where you're going, but
It
an
is. It
example would
is. It
be
is.
when David, for example, saw a woman taking a bath and he decided to have sex with her, and then she got pregnant, and then he decided to kill her husband. That is something the Bible records, not something the Bible affirms. So I know the distinction between the recorded accounts and the affirmations of practical living that the Bible outlines. So I'm not going to go and have sex with a woman and murder her husband because someone did in the Bible. I'm going to look at the truth propositions and distinguish them from the historical narratives of the Bible, because it's not just a rule book. It's history, it's poetry, it's
So
laws,
you
rules,
say it's
etc.
history. You say it's record. You say it's history. It's now. That's why I keep bringing up the Old Testament. You say it's history. You say it's poetry. Now, can you realistically, as a man of God, say that what's going on in the Old Testament is fact and something you're willing to pass on to your fellow constituents, right?
If
When
you're
I
making
say
reference
that,
to the miracles, like a
yes,
floating
I'm making
axe.
a reference to everything, yes, especially in the
Okay.
Old Testament.
Okay, so if you're making reference to the miracles, which I think you are, do I believe that those are actual events and factual events? I can give you two answers. Answer one would be, if I did not believe that God exists, then I would say no. All of those things that happened, floating axe, uh, thousands of people walking through the Red Sea, um, towers falling down because people shouted, etc. I don't believe not one of those things if I did not believe that God existed. But since I believe that God exists, then if God exists, then it's reasonable to believe that miracles are possible, that God can transcend the natural order in the natural world. And since it's reasonable to believe that God exists, it's reasonable to believe that miracles are possible. And since miracles are possible, it's okay to believe that miracles happen in the Old Testament. So I would say, yes, I do believe the miracles of the Old Testament.
So, do you personally have a contradiction when it comes to science and what the Old Testament says about God created the earth and the universe in 7 days? He rested on the seventh day. And do you, in your head, have a contradiction when science tells you the earth is not 3,000 or 6,000 years old? It's the universe 13 fucking point 4 billion years old, right?
Well, I wouldn't
Do
say I have a
you
contradiction.
wrestle with that in your head?
I wouldn't say I have a contradiction because I don't think that science and faith or science and Christianity are mutually exclusive. What I say to that as a reconciliation, because when I look at, and you can look at this too as well, when I look at the dating methods that people use to date the age of the earth, they get two different dating. You have dating methods that show the earth is young and dating methods that show the earth is old. The Christian can come in and say, I can believe both or not have a problem with both. Why? Because the Christian can say, and this is reasonable to believe, that God can create the world with age the same way he created Adam as an adult, aged human being. So a Christian can believe in a old earth and they can believe in a young earth. But I personally believe in a young earth because when I look at the scientific theory of the Big Bang and the proof for it and the fact that it goes outside of the realm of science, being as the first step of science is observation, then there's hypothesis, then there's testing experimentation for validating or invalidating the hypothesis, and then if the hypothesis is validated, then you have scientific fact or theory. If it has not been observed, then it is pure speculation and intellectual guesses as to where we all came from, when we all came, etc., etc. You go outside of science into philosophy when you start to talk about the origin of human life when no one was there to experience or see the origin of human life.
So that's, like you say, speculation,
Yeah,
correct?
speculation. So you go into the realm of speculation, which is not science. Science is that which can be observed. It's repeatable. It's based on induction, the fact that the future will be like the past. And induction actually is what every human being assumes and what scientists assume when they are doing any form of experimentation. Because if induction isn't true, then there would be no way of learning anything at all. Because if what you learn today can change tomorrow, then you'd have to keep learning the same thing over and over and over again. But since induction is true, you can learn one thing one time and expect it to be the same way over and over. It's like driving a car. You know that when you turn the steering left, the
That's
car is
science.
going to go left. You turn right, it's going to go
That's
right.
science.
But if you did not
It's,
assume induction, then every time you get into your car, you'd have to relearn what am I going to have to learn today about how to drive a car?
you're saying assumption as if assumption was just we're assuming. There's the scientific fact is very well based on the fact that we can not only predict, we can confidently predict what is going to happen. Not so much in the future, but any kind of equation we give out, right? We know what the result is going to be at the end of this equation.
Right, right,
So,
right, right, right.
so
So what I was making reference to is the foundational framework. Now we can expect or confidently expect that the future will be like the past, but in order for us to expect that, we have a foundation down here that is built upon. The expectation is built upon a foundation, and that
of course,
foundation is called induction. And induction is the phenomenon that the future will be repeated. So yesterday when I got out of bed, I didn't float
um,
away. I'm not going to float away tomorrow is the expectation. And that's actually a proof for the existence of God. A lot of people don't say that, but I'm going to
see,
outline it.
you jumped the gun there. So, arguably, every time we use that way of thinking and we didn't know the answer all throughout history, it's very easy to say we don't understand, so we're going to go to a creator. We're going to say we don't, that induction goes and we don't know the final result, so we're going to say we're ignorant and we're going to go creator.
Oh, I
Okay.
see what you mean. The God of the gaps thing. The God of the gaps. We can't explain it, so therefore it's God. I see what you're saying.
Now,
What I was gonna say was that the scientific when science began, when everybody started to do science,
yeah,
it was based upon the fact that since there is a creator, then we can expect that the universe will have regularity. And if the universe has
yes,
regularity, then we can do scientific experiments. We can observe things, we can hypothesize things, and we can create theories about things that we observe. But it's all built upon the foundation that there is a creator, and if he
creator, and
creates
that's the
everything,
problem.
then there has to be regularity. So,
So
as a
when I
Christian, I would
say,
say that God not only creates, but he sustains. Go ahead. Sorry for cutting you
so
off.
for me, no, thank you for saying that. For me, pardon my ignorance, it's a cop out. It's a cop out,
To say
right?
that
It's very
to say that
that
there
okay.
was a creator.
As soon as we don't understand, right? As soon as we have that gray area, right? What would you call it? Like the gap,
Oh, God
right?
of the
It's a
gaps.
cop out, and we go, okay, so it's creator. We don't understand, so it's great. And tell me if I'm wrong. And all throughout history, every single time, when it comes to any basic kind of science fact, the Earth goes around the sun or something like that, we figured out it doesn't. Initially, we said, oh, well, God made this. We are the center of the Earth, universe, da da da. And so that's one example. All right. Every time we didn't understand. It's a cop out. We go back to the creator thing. I know I'm kind of jumping the gun here. The main point I'm trying to make here is every single time that that gap, that gray area occurs throughout history, we cop out and we say it's the fucking creator, right? And it's gone through history for so long that we've gone up to the Big Bang with that theory, right? As a religious theory, we've said we didn't understand, and science has done nothing but answer the question every single time up to the point of the Big Bang, every single time.
Yeah, but
Do
when
you see
you
what I'm getting
actually
at?
look into what they say and you ask the crucial question, where did the energy come from to produce the Big Bang? You're going to
So
always come to a point where they say we don't know, but we are assuming or we're speculating or we're guessing. We're guessing.
Yes, sir.
But to
Yes,
say
sir.
that
And
God was the one who did it, when you say it's a cop out, I want to ask you, what is your position on the existence of God? Do you think he's real, or do you think he's just what we use to explain things that we can't explain?
you said it perfectly. We use him to explain the things we can't explain, and we've done nothing but done that throughout history up to the Big Bang. I was born in the Catholic Church. Okay,
So
I
do
was
you
born and
believe in
raised.
God? Do you believe that he exists?
No, I don't. I don't.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm glad that we're having this conversation, and you're very nice. Can I say atheist or
But
agnostic?
I would say atheist. But do you know? It took me a while to say that. Like I say, it took me a while to get to that point, and turn my back on the church and my family, and say, yeah, I fucking don't. I don't. It was
So
very
are
hard for me to
you?
say
So
that.
are you? Well, I know that atheism is not monolithic, so I have to ask the question: are you a naturalistic materialist, or do you think that there's something beyond the natural realm? Um, which camp do you fall
Um,
into?
I've never been asked these questions, so when I tell you my answers, please be patient. I don't believe in a higher power. I don't believe in some white bearded guy in the sky. I
Oh,
don't I
me
don't
neither. I don't
I
believe in a
don't
white bearded guy in the sky either.
right. I
We're
believe in
correct.
science. I believe in physics. I believe in matter. This is the physical world that we're living in, and that's what I believe. I believe in physics. I believe in numbers. I believe in mathematics. I believe in science.
Okay,
Now this
okay.
goes again what my
So
family brought me up to.
so do you think that there's anything that transcends the natural world?
I do not.
All right, all right.
However, hear me out on this, because I had this conversation with my friend the other day, and I believe it was Einstein that said that energy cannot be, created or
Or destroyed. I think is it
destroyed.
third law of thermodynamics. I think it is.
Now, as you and me, who has electricity pulsing through our bodies, a religious guy will say that's your soul. All right. Me, if I passed away, there's physically still some electricity pulsing through. Is that a soul? I don't know. Does it go somewhere? Again, it can't be destroyed, right? You know,
But you said that
that's
no
that's
one has asked you these questions. Do you mean that no one has challenged your perspective? No one
no,
has?
never,
Well, okay, okay.
never.
I can understand that. I mean, a lot of people
I
tend to
just
be
got to the
afraid
point a
to
couple
speak
years
with
ago where I
atheists.
admitted. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry,
But I'm
Mr.
glad
Sorry.
that you're honest and you can say that you don't believe that there's a God. I'm just curious as to how you would deal with these two problems. There are more problems that I find because atheism is a philosophical position, and I study philosophy and theology, and that's why I said that atheism is not monolithic. There are different types of atheists. That's why I asked you earlier if you fall in the camp
Very
of
good
just thinking
question.
that
Thank you.
yeah, I'm not gonna assume that you believe X, Y, Z. I gotta ask you. That's not
Well,
right to
grill me,
do. So,
'cause, dude. I don't even know. You got to tell me, what am
because
I?
earlier you said that. Well, I'm trying. I'm trying. Earlier you said that you don't think there's a higher power. You believe in physics, math, and biology. So that means that you would say that you believe in the natural world. So that's naturalism. That's the perspective, philosophical position called naturalism. The problem that I find with naturalism is this: any phenomenon, any conceptual framework that we cannot measure in a lab would fall outside of the category of the natural realm. An example would be the number two. I can write a representation of the number two on a board, but if I erase the number two off the board, the concept of two-ness does not cease to exist. But that concept of two-ness is not a natural concept. It can be represented by physical phenomenon, but it still remains an immaterial, transcendent concept. Do you understand where I'm going with this?
Of course, but
So I
um,
was gonna say that the argument is I'm just gonna say this quickly. The argument is if there's anything that exists outside of the natural world, then it would refute the naturalistic perspective on the world on a whole. But you can knock that down if you understand what I'm trying to say.
no, no, you are exactly correct. But then we wouldn't exist, right? So saying that two exists, but it doesn't, then it's like saying the physical world exists, but it doesn't at the same time. What you're getting into is quantum physics, quantum mechanics, right?
Well,
It's the
that's
same.
actually way deeper than what I was saying. That's actually way deeper than what I was saying.
So
Not
so
saying that two. I was saying that two exists. It exists, but it exists as a concept.
it exists as a concept. Just because you erase it, it still exists, right?
Right,
So
right. That's what I was saying.
Schrodinger's cat, right? Right.
Sorry.
It's very simple. Schrodinger's cat, right? But as quantum physics or mechanics, right? It's not one or zero. It's sorry, I live in Chicago. So it's not one or zero. It's right in the middle, right? And again, going back to Schrodinger's cat, we don't know until we observe. So I see what you're saying with the number two, but that would contradict all of existence, right? So do you see what I'm getting at?
That would I would agree with you that it would contradict all existence
Oh,
in a conceptual framework that says only the physical world exists.
and as a naturalist, it's music to my ears.
Yeah, that's where I was going. That what I'm doing is I'm stepping into your worldview and doing an internal critique and saying that
And you said it better than I ever could.
if I grant that there's only the natural world, then immaterial concepts, if they exist, would refute my position of saying that only the natural world exists.
And in a sense, that also contradicts the fact that if, as we observe a certain piece of matter or a number, like you say, for example, apparently it can exist at the same time somewhere else in the physical world, right? Apparently,
Well. I would say that if you erase it off the board and in some country somewhere else, it's written down somewhere else, it still remains a physical representation of a concept.
and this goes to like a multi-universe kind of theory. It goes to that too, where
And just to put this in, the reason why I said that is because if you and I did not exist, if no human beings exist, the concept of two-ness would still be true. There still the concept that 2 plus 2 equals 4 would still be true, with or without us to observe it. So those are truths or concepts that are invariant, universal, and eternal because they do not depend on human beings for their existence and for their validity. And I'm just using math because you mentioned math earlier. That's just one of many immaterial concepts that a Christian or a religious person could point to and say, hey, if you're an atheist and you only believe that there's only in the natural world, how do you deal with those things that do not exist in the natural world?
see, and that goes down a rabbit hole that even I have a hard time fathoming, right?
And I can understand because you said that you haven't thought about these things, and that's why I'm just taking it one step at a time to see how you would deal with
And
this or that.
and what's wrong with taking this physical world as a baseline, as of course, like I say, multi-universe theory or something like that. What's wrong with taking this physical world as a baseline for any other theory or any other theory that you have for other existence in a different, let's say, universe. See, in a different physical world. See, and even I can't get into this. So
Well, are you asking for? Okay, what? Let me see if I can rephrase your question, and you can tell me if I got it right. What's wrong with using naturalism as the starting point for explaining everything else?
very well said.
Okay. Just want to
Baseline.
make sure. What I would say, I wouldn't say that it's wrong to start with naturalism. I would say that it's insufficient to start with naturalism. And the reason for that is if you start with naturalism, there are going to be a lot of unanswered questions that are very crucial for the sustenance of that worldview. And one of those questions
Now,
would be we start with the natural realm. Where did the natural realm come from? We start there. What can I look at the natural realm and derive morality stating that this is wrong as opposed to that is wrong? And as well, what can I derive from the natural realm and answer the question of human dignity, value, and worth? Do human
see,
beings
now
see?
you're getting to
So
morality, you're getting into dignity,
so it
but
goes into a lot of things. So if I start with naturalism, does naturalism answer all those questions for me? I would say no. But if I start with God, then that answers all the questions. Oh,
because you're looking for an answer for morality and for wrong and right, because you're jumping the gun there, right? If we take naturalism, the physical world as the baseline, as I keep saying, morality and all that can be answered later, but you're jumping the gun on that. It's very easy to say, well, God or religion, and that answers your question of morality and
yeah,
justification,
and
right?
I mean that's what I was gonna say. When we start here, naturalism, and then we move out to go to the question of morality, how would we answer morality by using the naturalism?
We don't.
That's
Morality
the
is a made of. See what I'm saying?
and
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 you're not okay with that. So, and don't
yeah,
get me
yeah.
wrong,
So
right?
that's my problem. That's my problem with atheism. That's the,
And you're,
and
and,
I'm not saying I have a problem with you as a person. I'm just not saying that the
oh, of
worldview
course not.
itself, the worldview. If someone said, "Hey, why aren't you an atheist?" I would say, "Well, because atheism can't account for these important questions that every human being at some point in their life ponder. Where did we come from?
Um,
Who are we? Why are we here?
and
Morality."
and that's nothing. But when we talk about morality, right? It's like the guy that goes, "Hey, you have to be a Christian, Catholic, or a Buddhist, whatever, because how do you know not to murder your neighbor, right? Right? And that's always like a very big argument towards religion, right? Like, how are you not a serial killer if you're not religious? Like, how do you know not to fucking
Well,
hit on your
those
neighbor's wife,
questions
whatever?
can be answered without religion, but those questions
Exactly.
when they're answered and the reason why I said that is
Exactly.
because if I ask someone, "Why aren't you a thief?" If he says, "Well, because it's wrong to steal."
Yeah.
That's an answer. It's an answer.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna say that no one can answer the question of why is something wrong or right without God. What I rather say is this: when you keep pressing the individual who says that God does not exist on why something is wrong, they are going to end up in what philosophers call the
It's gotta be good.
self-referential absurdity. And what that is this: what I want to do is what I ought to do, and what I ought to do is what I want to do. And what that is this: either you determine what's wrong for you and right for you, or the society you live in decides what's right for you and wrong for you. But
A little bit
those
of
two
both.
things, yeah, those two things, if we press them hard enough, you and I will disagree with them to the logical entailment, because the logical entailment would be whatever the society says is wrong or right, we have to agree. but you and I don't agree with everything our government says. If we determine our morality, we can look back in the past of our lives and say, hey, when I did that thing, I was wrong. And now that I'm wiser, I wouldn't have done that thing again, which means that your morality changed over time. And if it changes over time, it's arbitrary. And if it's arbitrary, then are you right in what you believe now? You can't say yes because you could change tomorrow. And if you change tomorrow, were you right the day before you changed? You see, so it goes down a rabbit hole of
It does.
inconsistencies, and these inconsistencies are reasons why I would not accept the proposition that, hey, it's wrong because the society says so, or it's wrong because I said so. Who are you to determine your morality, and who is the society to determine your morality? I wouldn't say the American government has a right to say what's wrong for you, what's right for you, and you wouldn't say that they do either. That's why people break the law all the time. But does what I'm saying make sense?
Of course it does. And I think it's not so much like you say individual. It is mostly all society. I really do believe it's generally all of society. I see what you're saying. It's that individualism. But it really is the environment that you're influenced by. If the ancient Egyptians who loved cats, and I was the one guy that just kept fucking killing cats, maiming cats. I was like that in society was very, very wrong, right? Right,
Right.
right. But that's the thing from society, right? Me, as like you say, in individualism, like, would I ever know as a talking monkey? Is it right to do that to a cat? Is it not? Like, who the fuck knows, right? In society, of course, it's very wrong. To this day, it comes off as very wrong,
Yeah,
right?
so a lot of people say it's intuition, and I agree to an extent because my worldview, my conceptual framework is based on the Bible, and the Bible says that God wrote on the conscience of human beings right and wrong. So you will expect, as a Christian, to find societies who have similarities in their moral code because God wrote it on their heart from my
Are
perspective.
you saying that God created man in in his perfect light? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying? Please explain that to me. God is creating human or man as a perfect
No,
human, as a perfect creature.
no, I would, what I'm saying is that the Bible makes the case that God's law is written on the hearts of men, and their conscience bears witness of that, in the sense that you will find more often than not, every person you ask, is murdering a 2 month old baby right? They will say, no, that's not right. And that's just one example, but you can find that with multiple examples. If you ask a father, is smacking your wife in the face with a baseball bat right? He's going to say, no, it's not right. Because, I mean, it goes to an extent where everyone will say that this thing is wrong. And I can use two examples. One example would be um, sexual assault and stealing. We find that every society, I don't think there's a society on this planet that would affirm stealing,
That stealing is okay.
that stealing is okay, because when you look throughout history, people would cut the hands off of thieves when they stole, and they would literally kill the person who sexually assaulted a woman. And that's so consistent that I wouldn't say we need God to know right from wrong. I would say we need God to justify right from wrong. And the reason for that is you will find yourself in this absurd circle of self-referentialism. And let me show you an example. And I
God,
think
see,
I
I'm,
think
I'm I'm having such a hard time with that. Self. So can you say it again?
s-
Self.
self-referentialism. What I mean is that you are the reference point. Self-referentialism. You are the reference point for morality. And the reason why you or I should not be the reference point is because we make mistakes. We're fallible. You and I have moments in our past when we made a decision that we thought was right. And now we look back, we say, hey, I shouldn't have done that. I should not have done that. And if that's the case, then that means, look at it this way. If a society decides that tomorrow what they thought was right the day before is now wrong, were they wrong the day before they decided that now they're right? It's a very difficult question, but
Well, no, it's a perfect question. Yeah.
I'm going to use something as simple as colors. If I like blue today and tomorrow I hate blue, was it okay for me to like blue the day before?
As a Mayan, if I sacrifice a fucking fellow Mayan on the fucking altar in front of everybody, I take his heart out, right? And I'm sacrificing God, right? And then the next day we go, oh shit, that's not cool.
Yeah. So
right?
So the next day when you said, hey, that was wrong, the day before when you were doing it, it was right. The day after, looking back, when you thought it was right, was it wrong the entire time, the whole time? You see, so
and I could dumb it down even more, especially in my city where all everybody's locked up for selling weed, right? It was wrong. Now the city needs money, and all of a sudden selling weed is all right.
So that's that's the problem. It's called self-referential absurdity. Self-referential absurdity.
I gotta read it. I'm sorry, because
to simplify the words, self means you and I, referential means you're the reference point, and absurdity means it's stupid. It's nonsense. It's babbling nonsense. Today you're one thing and tomorrow you're another thing, and today you're one thing and tomorrow you're another thing. And it happens in groups and it happens individually. If I'm the reference point, today something can be wrong for me and tomorrow it's right for me, and it just changes every single day. Societally or socially, the government can say smoking weed is right today and tomorrow it's wrong. So what you have there is a changing morality, a constantly changing morality. And the reason why it's absurd is because you and I would have no basis for saying that anyone is wrong when they are doing XYZ without making ourselves the reference point. When we're asked, hey, why is that wrong? Well, because I said so. Well, it's right because I said so. So who's right? Who's wrong?
Right. And this is the big question of every society.
And socially, if Germany says that something is wrong and America says that that same thing is right, who's wrong? Who's right? If Germany says, hey, America, why is that wrong? Well, because we said so. America says to Germany, why is that wrong? Well, because we said so. But you both contradict each other. So who's right? There has to be an objective moral standard that's universal, unchanging, and eternal. And so far, the only answer is God. He's the only one without those problems. He has no changing morality. His morality stays the same. His morality is eternal. And I wouldn't say it's the God of the gaps. I would say it's the only reasonable answer to this conundrum.
So in the 1500s, if I literally slaughtered a guy because he didn't believe in my Christian God, it's a holy war. It's correct, right?
Yeah. The Crusades that took place in the first Crusade was 1079. So 1079 through to 1272. Those years of the Crusades, the actual book that Christians claim to follow condemns the Crusades. So the Crusades throughout history, where someone would be forced to become a Christian by the sword, was actually a hypocritical act by people claiming to be Christians, because the book that you claim to follow actually says, don't force anyone to become a Christian, just evangelize them by speaking to them the gospel. So anybody can point to any point in history where Christians were hypocritical in what they believe because they practiced something that was the opposite to what they claim to believe, which is the Bible. So the Bible does not advocate
It's
for
extremism.
it doesn't advocate for a changing morality. It was always wrong if the Bible said something is wrong, like lying and stealing. Just to use something very, very, very simple, lying and stealing. So
And of course, they thought lying, stealing in the name of God was correct, right?
lying and
But
stealing in
again,
the name
that's
of
it.
God, actually, no. You see, the Bible actually doesn't advocate for lying and
Well, that's what
stealing
they
in the
thought.
name of God. I can't break
They
into your
justified
house.
all their violence.
I can't break into your house and add to my action in the name of God, and somehow my action is sanctified. There's actually rules set out. Example, God says that I, as a man, should not marry a man. Can I go to my church and say, hey, I'm marrying this man in the name of God? And somehow the act is sanctified. So any Christian who uses that argument, in the name of God, I do X, Y, Z, if it contradicts what God says you are to do, you're not doing it in the name of God. You're doing it in the name of yourself, or self-referential absurdity, self-referential. You're the self,
So,
the reference point.
right. So where does willpower come into this? Where God made you in the perfect creation of light, in his perfect creation, right? But he
Mm,
gives you willpower. So you are naturally a sinner because he gave you willpower, right? So if you were perfect in the name of God, there you wouldn't be judged. You wouldn't be a sinner, right? You wouldn't go to hell, right? But he created you, and now you are a sinner because he gave you willpower. And now that you have willpower, you sin. You see what I'm getting at?
that's a good question. I'm going to repeat it to you so that I can know that I have it
And,
right. Okay. So
and this goes back to the other thing, yeah.
God created human beings. He did not want them to sin, but he gave them willpower, knowing that they would sin. Wait, wait. Let me say it differently.
Uh-oh.
Um,
Uh-oh. Oh, shit.
no, that's not a problem. I have the answer. I just want to make sure I get the question right. I just filibustered just now. God created man, not wanting them to sin, but he gave them something that will make them sin, which is their willpower. Is that right?
Yes,
So
sir.
is your question, why did he give them willpower knowing that they would sin even though he didn't want them to sin?
I mean, yeah, I guess that is my question. Yeah, that is my question. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay.
That is
So
my question.
the answer to the question is God wants to display all his attributes to his creation, the sentient creation, human beings, and the only way for him to do that is for sin and evil to exist. And the reason why is because if sin and evil does not exist, God cannot show all of his attributes, which would include his righteousness, his holiness, his goodness, and his
I'm
wrath.
so sorry, Sandra. I'm so sorry. Can you say it one more time? I am so sorry. You said it very well.
Oh, let me say it
You
again.
said it very well.
The reason why man has a will, and that will was a part of the means of sin coming into the world, is because God wanted sin to come into the world. It's not something that he didn't want to come into the world.
See, now you said it differently. If God wanted sin to come into the world, then why did he create man in that light?
Okay, so when God made Adam and Eve and you look at the Genesis record, it never says that God made man perfect. It said that God made man good. And good is not perfect. There's actually Bible verses that state that even the angels are not perfect in his sight because he charges them with wrongdoing. Angels sin, human beings sin. God created human beings and angels with the capacity to sin because he wanted sin to come into the world. The other Christian would say God did not want sin to come into the world, but he gave them the capacity to sin anyway. And that's a contradiction. But I'm not a contradictory Christian. I'm one of those who are consistent. So I'm going to tell you, God
Go
wanted
on.
sin to come into the world, so he created human beings and angels with the capacity for sin to come into the world. And by having sin in the world, God can show his attributes of power over sin, evil, and wrong by his righteousness, judgment, justice, holiness, goodness. And without sin being in the world, he could not show
Show
those
his
attributes.
attribute.
Right, right. That's the
So
only
God
consistent answer.
showed his attributes. So he gave the capacity of willpower so a human can sin. So he can show his attribute. Dude. So he can show his attributes.
Okay, I'm going to use a different word. His characteristics, his perfections, his characteristics. So I'm gonna say this in a different way. So good cannot be known unless you have a concept of the opposite, which is bad. Righteousness can't be
Yes,
known
sir.
unless you have a concept of the opposite, which is unrighteousness. Power and strength can't be known unless you have a concept of weakness and powerlessness. So, with sin being in existence, God can show his righteousness to the opposite, which is unrighteousness. But if there's no sin, there's no such thing as unrighteousness. Because there's sin, God can show good and bad, his goodness over bad, bad being evil, bad being sin. But if there's no sin, there's no such thing as bad and no such thing as evil. But because God wants to show his characteristics, his perfections to his creation, then because he wanted to do that, sin had to exist. So he purposefully created the world with human beings and angels having the capacity for sin to come into the world. And I'm going to say this, Dane, this is a very hard question for Christians because when they hear this question, they fold. We fold. I'm going to say we because I used to fold on this too. We don't want to say that God wanted sin to come into the world because it creates a lot of baggage that we don't want to have to
If you want
deal
to
with.
show the characteristics of his, go ahead.
We don't want to say that. So if you ask the average Christian this question, you're a smart guy, so you're going to be able to point out the inconsistency. How can you believe in a God who does not want sin to come to the world, but yet he gave people the capacity to sin, knowing that they would sin and bring sin into the world? How is that not a contradiction? They're going to be like,
That was my question.
They're going to be like,
That was my original question, right?
And this is the answer.
Right?
The reason why it's not a contradiction is because something, well, when you look at the word contradiction or in logic, there are three laws: law of non-contradiction,
Don't
law
get
of
into that now.
exclusiveness.
Wait. Don't get into that now. Don't get into that. Okay, we'll get into that.
Okay, let's talk about contradiction. A contradiction is when wait.
Dude, you
Wait,
you
hold
think
on,
it too much. Okay.
I want to state the statement. Okay. Something cannot be both true and false in the same way, in the same sense. That's the rule of non-contradiction. The Christian answers that question by saying that it's not a contradiction because God has two wills. In God's will of decree, which is one sense, God wants sin to exist. God brought sin into existence. But in
Yes.
another sense, in his other will, which is his preceptive will or his will of command, in his commands, he says, "Thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not steal." So,
That's it.
in that sense, he does not want you to sin, but in the other sense, he wants you to sin. And the reason why that's not a contradiction is because contradictions come when two things are not true or they both are mutually exclusive in the same sense and the same way. But if they are in different senses in different ways, then they're not contradicting each other because they're in different planes or different perspectives or different senses.
And
So because
and
God has
so
two wills, he can want two different things and it not be contradicting. So yeah.
so you answered my question by saying that God had two wills. So God created man in a perfect light, whatever,
In a good
and
light,
he
with the capacity to sin.
in a good light. And I say that because every old lady, in the pews is going to say that. Oh, God created you in that certain fucking. So what you're telling me, God God created you in that perfect light, and in the second will, He created you as a sinner as well, and it doesn't contradict. Is what you're telling me. So,
I
right?
would
So
say
tell me if I'm wrong. So He gave you
if you're
willpower in
talking
one
about,
sense.
if you're making a reference to after Adam, then yes, created as a sinner. But if it is before Adam, it would be created. Well, if it's Adam, sorry, if it's Adam, it's created with the capacity to sin or with the capacity to be fallible. So the reason why, and you can, if you take this further and study philosophy and logic, and you look at the law of non-contradiction, the reason why a Christian can get away with saying that God has two wills and they not
Is
contradict each other is because it does not fit the category of the definition of saying that it's two things that contradict each other because they are both making reference to the same thing in the same sense or the same way.
that's that's the answer I was looking for, and that's I don't know how the hell you just said that. That you're a very smart guy. How the hell you came to that? And again, with my stupid fucking brain.
I wouldn't say you're
Again,
stupid. Nah, I
be
would say.
patient with me. Be patient. Okay. The way you just said that was so elegant. Was so elegant. And in all of that, that's still in your head, not a contradiction. And I understand you said the definition of a contradiction.
It's
Oh my god.
let me give you a new word. It's not a contradiction. It's a paradox. Two, if you look up that word, two seemingly contradictory statements, but when they are examined closely, they are both true. And the paradox, if you look up examples of paradoxes, it's a cold, sunny day. That's a
Yes,
paradox.
yes, yes.
It's
But yeah, of course. But let's not even go to that example. So again, he gives you the willpower, but he knows you're gonna sin. And we could go to Jesus about this, and he puts man on ground as a sinner. He
so
gives you the willpower, but he knows you will sin at the same time.
and I love this line of questioning because it really brings out the challenge that a lot of Christians face. So I'm going to take this
Yeah.
from a different angle by using examples. So there's this whole concept of free will and determinism. Free will and determinism. Are you determined to do what you do, or do you have a free will to transcend your biological and social factors that determine you to do what you do? And the answer from the scientific community is no. You cannot transcend your biology. your brain and your physical structure and stature determine you to do certain things, think a certain way, walk a certain way, talk a certain way. You have no control over that because you have no freedom to go beyond that. A
And that is
the
free will.
a theistic determinist, which I am, a religious determinist, I would say that before God created you and I, he created us knowing exactly what we would do, and we would not do what he knew that we would do unless he first created us, which means that God is the ultimate cause and the ultimate reason for every choice and decision that every human being makes because he
That's right.
created us. And not
Right.
only did he create us, but he also sustains us. So every choice that we make, God is not only the ultimate reason we do it, he's also the direct reason we do it because unless he allowed it or sustained us while we did it, there was no way we could have done it. So from that perspective, does when we look at it from that perspective, does God creating us and sustain us include our sinful and evil actions? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Every sin we make, every wrong thing we do is also the direct result of God creating us and sustaining us. Okay? So that is what we call the transcendental level. Transcendental level. On the natural level, the horizontal level, God gives human beings, or rather, God gave human beings rules and laws to follow. So when God says, do not steal, do not murder, do not commit adultery, those are commands that he wants us to follow from the perspective and sense of his will of command. But on the transcendental level, where
He knows
God
damn well
determines.
we're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna, right?
So
Because
earlier when I said so what I just did was I showed you two planes, one on
yes,
transcendental, one
but
on
it
natural.
always goes up to the transcendental. It always goes up to that every single time, right? Because
So
I see what you're saying.
so what a lot
Go
of
ahead.
Christians try to do is a lot of Christians try to absolve God of the fact that he created us knowing what we would do, and unless he created us, we would not do what we did. But because he created us, then everything that we do is a part of his will of decree. He decreed that. So everything we do is a part of his decree. So in that sense, God wants us to sin because if he didn't want us to sin, we wouldn't sin in the first place. Everything
Right.
we do, all our actions. So from that level, we are determined. But on the natural level, when we break God's law, we do something that he does not want us to do. And how that's not a
So
contradiction, here's how it's not a contradiction.
before you get into it, this is the answer I want. Well, I'm not gonna cut you off. Go ahead. You're on a roll. Keep going.
I just want to say this is the hardest question in Christianity, by the way. So if you want to
Yes,
stump
this is
any
the
Christian,
hardest
this is
question.
it.
Yes, sir.
This is the
Yep.
hardest question in Christianity.
Trust me, I know.
Okay. Okay. So the reason why it's not a contradiction is because it's two wills, two senses, two planes, two levels, two different levels, which means that it's not wrong in one sense and it's wrong in another sense. It's not wrong because God is the one who's decreeing it to happen, and it's wrong in
Yes.
another sense because it's breaking the law of God. So two
Yes.
wills, two different wills, and so on. That's the best
Gotcha.
explanation. And I've heard people say, it's a good explanation, but it is insufficient for me to accept Christianity. And I can accept that. The reason why I am accepting it is because it is true, it makes sense, and it's sufficient to explain away the seemingly contradictory phenomenon, because we can use the word
It-
paradox. He's the
It
paradox.
justifies sin. It justifies sin.
I wouldn't say it. Well, now that's a different question. Let me tell you why it doesn't justify sin.
But before I get, dude, because I got a hurricane run through. I got to close my windows because shit's happening. Give me a sec. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll be here. I'm thinking about the question.
Perfect.
Trying to remember the explanation. It doesn't justify sin because.
I'm almost ready. Hold up.
No worries.
Thank you for your patience.
Okay, so here we go. So the answer to that question would be the reason why it doesn't justify sin is because there is a law that condemns sin or a law that prohibits sin. Where there is no law, there is no sin. Because there is no law that puts the actions of God in the category of being right or wrong, when God determines that someone sin, God does no wrong, God does no evil. Because if someone says, hey, it's wrong for God to decree that I sin, and I can say, okay, it's wrong for God. By what standard? What law is God breaking when he determines that you and I sin? There's no law that God has to follow. Ever heard the saying, it's wrong for you, but not for me?
Do as I sit. Do as I do, not as I. Excuse me. Do as I say, not as I do.
And the only person who can say that is someone who has the authority to say that. An example would be if I come to your house and I have my shoes on and you say, take your shoes off. And I look at you in your house and say, hey, man, you have your shoes on. Why do I have to take mine off? You can say, hey, bro, this is my house. I can wear my shoes in my house. Take your shoes off. I have to take my shoes off because you are the lord of your house. You are in charge of your house. You are the boss of your house. You bring that to the transcendental level. God is the boss of the universe. He is the king of all of us. If he says, don't murder, don't steal, don't kill, but I can kill, I can take life, you can't look at God and say, hey, why can't I kill? You kill. Hey, bro, I'm the boss. Take your shoes off. He's the only one who can say that. He's the only one who can say. The reason why I use the analogy with you is because it would make sense for someone who owns the house to tell people to take their shoes off, even if he has his shoes on. Makes a lot of sense. Makes sense for God to do the same thing. When it comes on to us as human beings, the reason why when we sin, it's wrong, even if God decrees that we sin, is because there is a law that is binding on us. There's a law that we can point to that says this action is wrong, that action is wrong,
Okay.
even if God
I
determined
see.
that we would do the action. But there are better ways to explain it. These are just the words that I have in my head at this particular time.
My friend, hey, there's not better ways to explain it. You understand what I'm saying?
I mean, these are just the words that I have available to my head right now. I could probably use better words, but that's the best I can do for now. So, so I would say, yeah.
Time. You understand? There is no better way to explain it. Do you see how I'm giving you account? Do you understand that in all my years of battling with this subject, going back, arguably coming from the most Catholic church in the world, arguably, I'm as a Polak, right? From old grannies, from everything. Do you understand? I've never came across a human being like you that can so well and elegantly prove your point and convince me so well articulated. I'm not kissing your ass. First of all, fuck you. Second of all, Second of all,
But thank you
yeah,
for the
I'm jealous.
compliment, though. Thank you for the compliment.
Second of all, I have never in my life come across a human being that can so well. I'm looking for another word for articulate. No other person that can explain it so well as you. It's you did it so well that now you got me thinking, and I've been thinking for 15 years, and now you got me looking at the dark side. What's going on here is, God, see, I'm at a loss for words, and I'm gonna say fuck you again.
Are you starting to rethink your worldview and perspective? Is that it?
Nope, 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 nope. That's why I say fuck you. No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Okay.
However, your debate, your tactics are so good that I didn't think I was the best. I know the guys that can debate so well. I have never met a human being like you that can do what you do. I'm not kissing your, I am kissing your ass. But what's going on here is I've just never experienced this in my life. You are so dedicated, so well read, and so you explain it so well that I'm literally speechless. And again, I'm not swayed the other way. You haven't convinced me yet because I'm stubborn. Okay, I am stubborn. Okay, at the end of the day, and I
But
think,
have I made you think about it a little bit
of
more?
course you have.
Okay,
Of
okay.
course you have.
At least I was able to do that because,
You know damn well you did. Of course you did.
and
And
I'm going to say again, that question is the hardest question in Christianity. You are going to, if I always say, if you want to make a Christian fold into inconsistency, ask them about how can a God who does not want sin in the world create
give you a
people with the capacity to sin and that not be a contradiction. You ask them that question, you're going to either hear, I don't know, or they're going to answer you, but their answer is going to be inconsistent and you can pick it apart if you pay attention enough.
Everton, do you see how I asked you the hardest question in arguably 2,000, 3,000 years that everybody's been debating for that long, for 3,000 years? And off the cuff, you're like, yeah, no problem. Let me get into it. Da da da. Here, right? And you
Yeah,
said it
yeah.
yourself. It's the hardest. And you're like, yeah, no problem. Here we go. Here's my. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Arguably,
but this was not overnight. I had to study these things for years to be able to not only understand it but articulate it to bring the ideas into words. Because I can be honest with you, it does seem contradictory. But if there was no such, if there was not a word called paradox, if there was no such thing as a paradox, um, I would say, hey, Christianity is contradictory, makes no sense. But if there is a paradox, we have scriptures that we have people use paradox every day. Um, you say words, you make sentences that sound contradictory, but when they're evaluated, they are. Example: I'm a married bachelor. Sounds contradictory. Sounds impossible. But you do have married bachelors. Someone who's married, but he acts like he's a bachelor. So in one sense, he's married, but in another sense, he's a bachelor. Two different senses. But the only way you can be a married bachelor is if you're a bachelor in one sense and married in another sense. You can't be a married bachelor in the same sense because that's a contradiction, and contradictions are not possible. But if you are a paradoxical married bachelor, then that's possible. With God and this whole thing with evil and sin, on one sense, he wants sin to happen because without sin, he can't show all his attributes or characteristics or perfections. And on another sense, he doesn't want sin because he has a law that prohibits sin. You understand it that way, and then you have no problems. No problems as a Christian.
Everton, do you see how I'm breaking down the fourth wall and I'm explaining to you your own intelligence, and you go into natural this natural explanation, this part, you do it naturally, like you don't even have to. And I'm talking about you, and what did you do? Just explain it all over again.
But in a simpler
Very well
way.
said.
A simpler
In a
way.
simpler way, in layman's terms. I didn't ask you to. What you did it naturally, right? Right. As I'm talking about your characteristics, as I'm talking about your very good attributes, right? You just did it without me asking, right?
But I want to thank you, though. I want to thank you for your compliments. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Fuck you.
I appreciate you, Dane.
Um, you don't. The pleasure is mine. You don't even know. So I'm literally shaking in my boots because I don't know how to talk to a guy that is that many levels above me. What's going on here is I want to introduce you to my family. I want to introduce my friends, and I know how to do it. Right? I don't know how to talk to you. The problem is I always feel like I'm looking for words because I feel like I'm stupid when I talk to you. Um, you're just a natural. You're just natural, right? You're natural.
Thank you so much, Dane. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. And thank you for your questions. You asked the hardest question because, I mean, I get a lot of questions, and I'm always sitting back hoping that they don't ask that question. But you went right for it. You went right there,
And
and I had to answer it.
and not only that, remember we talked about the Big Bang too, right?
Yeah.
That's another huge big question. The biggest question, right? Right. And what did you do? Off the cuff, no problem. Right? So here's what's going on. Da da da. Like, dude,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm I'm
yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's what happened. And I understand because the reason why that happens, as I said, is because I've been studying for years. I've been studying for like 10 years since I was 20 years old. You
you
do psychology.
everybody.
I am sure that if you were to articulate for me I think you said you did a minor in psychology. If you articulated for me the minor psychological foundation of things, I'd be sitting back saying, I did not know that. I did not think about that. And you had made me think. It's I think that when people have expertise in a certain area because of their years of studying, then they can articulate themselves very well when it comes on to that subject. But I am nonetheless an ignoramus when it comes on to other subjects, as we all are in certain areas, because no human being knows everything. I'm sure that I would be talking nonsense if I was talking about psychology to a certain extent, and history, biology, science. I don't know enough about quantum physics. All I know is that that's the only level where we can find random phenomena, where things literally come in and out of existence, and we don't know the cause. To that level is where we can find things that are uncaused, and that's where scientists go to try and prove that it's possible for the Big Bang to happen as something that comes into existence out of nothing. But they will still say that there was a cause, we just don't know what the cause is. But that's all I know about quantum physics. I don't know all the nomenclature, all the big words, all the molecule stuff and all that. Just know the basic concept of quantum physics. But I am ignoramus about a lot of things. A lot of things.
I threw it up and you knocked it down. And then at the end of it, you still have the balls to say you don't know. You're an ignoramus.
About a
Do you
lot of things.
understand that the people that work on those computers cannot articulate what you just said, right? Do you understand that you are more well read than the next guy who actually fucking builds these fucking machines? You understand that, right?
Thank you, Dane. Thank you very much, man.
Now you do. My friend, again, thank you for being patient with me. I don't know. I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna track you down, and I'm gonna talk to you again because
I'll tell you
Lord
what.
knows it's the
I'll put my
best thing I
Facebook
could
in.
do
You
in the
got
world.
Facebook?
I don't. Do you have Snapchat?
Snapchat? No, actually, I don't have Snapchat.
You don't. I don't even
Wait,
have Instagram. You don't have Instagram?
I have Instagram. Yeah, I do. Wait. Did you say you
Uh,
don't have Instagram, or you say you do?
I don't because I got stalkers. I had to delete it. I got stalkers.
All right.
Can I,
So
dude? My a. I will give you my personal phone number. Can I ever talk to you again, bro? Can I ever? I know it sounds weird. I know
of
it sounds
course you
weird, but
can.
can I? Can I ever
Tell you what.
just?
Let me.
You don't have to give me your phone number. I just want to give you my phone number, so maybe one day in the future I could just talk to you again because I don't know if you're very social. I don't know about that, but I gotta introduce you to my friends. You are literally the smartest guy I've ever come across. Okay,
Sure.
and
I'm gonna get my phone. Honey, can you give me my phone, please? Sure, I got you. I got you.
I, I I don't know if you've ever had this experience in your life where like you just come across something and you just have to share it. You have to, you know, this is you right now, bro. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I
I'm
can't let
very
you see.
social,
I
by the
have
way.
to.
I'm very social, so I would love to meet your friends and family, and probably have this conversation with them as well.
See how? Of course, of course, of course, of course, of course.
So
And
I got my yeah, it's not showing. I got the numbers right here, so I'm just gonna type them in.
um do you want me to type my phone number in?
Yeah, go
Here,
ahead
I'll
and
do it
type
right
it
now.
in, and I'll copy it. I'll copy, type it. I'll copy and paste it in my WhatsApp. You have WhatsApp?
Um, I do not.
Okay. I'll just ring your number.
Yeah. Call me, bro. Please,
Let me see if I can copy that. Oh no, I can't copy it.
because you can't send links through the chat. If it's a link, it's not gonna go through.
Yeah, and I can't copy and paste it either. But let me just type it in here. Six.
Well, I'll tell you right now. You got your phone out?
I'm gonna repeat it. 63020500158.
Correct.
What's the? Do you know the area code? The area code on you?
630.
Okay, so 630 is the area code. Okay. Okay, I just sent it to my WhatsApp, so I have it here.
So I'm on the edge right now because you have my number and I don't have yours and I don't know ever how to contact you again.
Wait, hold
I'm
on.
sweating bullets right now.
Hold on.
I'm
Is your
sweating
is your
bullets,
phone
bro.
working right now?
You're on it.
Okay.
That's you.
I'm I'm ringing you right now as we speak.
I know. I can see it, my man.
Okay, great. I'm gonna save your number as Dane the psychologist.
I'll take it. I've been called
Dane the
worse.
psychologist. Wait, let me put a plus sign on that and ring again just to make sure.
Yep.
Coming
That's
through.
me.
Okay. So Dane, save my
If
number, and whenever you're ready to chat, Dane the psychologist. And I'm gonna say again, if you ever want to put a Christian in a box, that's the question you gotta ask him. And when I do
well,
Bible study with my family, I educate my family on these questions, these issues, because
I can tell. I can
one
tell.
day, man, like you are going to bump it. Actually, the first debate I ever had when I was 20 years old, was with an atheist, and he kicked my he kicked my ass. He kicked my ass. And his question was similar to yours, but it was about the tree, the garden, and Adam. He kept asking me,
Yeah. Garden of Eden. Yeah.
did God want Adam to sin? I said, no, of course not. So why did he put Adam in the garden, create the serpent in the garden, knowing that by creating Adam, the serpent, and the tree, putting it there, that he would eat of the tree. Adam said, hey, he gave him free will. And then the atheist said, did God know what Adam would do with his free will? He had me. He had me because
Oh, that's a good one.
he
Wow.
had me.
Wow, that's a good one.
And I'm like,
That's a really good one.
yes, he knew. So, and then he said, so if God knew that if he gave Adam free will, he would do something that God did not want him to do, how can God want him to do something and not want him to do something at the same time? I gave an answer, but it was the dumbest answer I could ever think of, but I just wanted to give an answer. You know, when you're in that position where you don't want to look stupid, so you don't
You
want to
want to
say
say something.
you don't want to say you don't know. So I gave the dumbest answer that I could think of. And then
Well,
he
and
caused
what'd you
me
say?
he caused me to go, and I studied for days. My wife would complain, why are you studying when we should be spending time together? 20 years old, studying. And 6 months later, bumped into him again. And I had the answer, and it
And you
was
had a
similar to the
damn
answer
good
I gave
answer.
you. It was similar to the answer I gave you. The only consistent answer is God wanted sin to come into the world. That way, he could show his perfections, his attributes to his creation. And I'm going to say this 10 years later, about to be 30 years old, that is the only consistent answer. Any other answer that any Christian gives, you can poke holes in it. Any answer. And unfortunately,
And you're going by that two plane kind of wheel thing, right? You're going by that two answer.
plain.
Okay.
That is biblical example. Here's an example, the biggest example. The Bible actually states this in Acts chapter 4. The murder of Jesus Christ. The Bible says, there were gathered together against your holy servant Jesus, Herod, Pontius Pilate, the people of Israel, to do whatever your hand and your purpose predestined to occur. I quoted that verse word for word, Acts chapter 4, verse 26 and 27. Whatever your hand and your purpose predestined to occur. So God's hand, God's purpose predestined the murder of Jesus Christ. But the Bible says that God says in the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not murder. So we have it in the Bible. Thou shalt not murder, but God's hand predestined the murder of Jesus Christ.
And not only did God predestine, Jesus knew it.
He knew it. And as the Bible says in John chapter 10, no one takes my life from me. I give it on my own accord. I give it myself, and I take it up. I have the power to take it up again. So the Bible actually teaches this two wills perspective. And a will is basically a want, what you want to happen. God does not do anything that he does not want to do. And God does not permit anything to happen that he does not want to happen. That's the God of creation. So if he says, thou shalt not murder, then that means he does not want you to murder in one sense. But then if he decrees that you murder, then he wants you to murder in another sense. And this two plane concept, this two wills perspective, is how we explain away the apparent contradiction by saying it's a paradox. It's paradoxical, not contradictory. If the Christian does not say that, any other answer he gives is going to be inconsistent, is going to have problems.
Correct.
Right. So I didn't know that when I was 20 years old, and I got my ass kicked.
Well, now you know better.
Yeah, and I was able to make you think, you know? I was able to make you think, and I'm happy.
Wait,
And
you didn't figure out that the first time, dumbass?
well, actually, you told me, so I had to, go off of what you said. But we're gonna talk again. We're gonna definitely talk again.
The first time and you didn't? What the fuck? Were you sleeping, bro? I'm giving you shit.
I know. We'll definitely talk again. So just text me, call me, and I'm looking forward to meeting your friends and family.
I'm almost done. But where does Jesus' quote as he's on the cross and he goes, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And where does that fall? And think about that in the paradox. Where does that fall in that paradox, dude?
And here's the answer. I have it. Here's the answer. When you study what is called textual criticism, which is the field of studying the manuscripts, the transmissions of the Bible, and how we got the Bible and so on, that the New Testament went through a process of copying, recopying, copying, so on and so forth.
Okay, translating, yeah.
Yeah, we find that 2,000 years down the line, if you have people recopying documents, which they had to do back then because papyrus can only last 100 years. Yeah. We don't have the original autographs. You are going to have textual variants where if you copy a document and I copy the same document, you're going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes, but we're not going to make the same mistakes. So someone can take our two documents and reestablish the original of what you and I copied, but the certainty of having the correct document would have to be from multiple sources. And we have over 2.5 million pages of manuscripts to compare. That verse you're making reference to is a textual variant, meaning it was not a part of the original autographs. So that verse, as well as the pericope adultery, where you have the woman who was caught in adultery by some Jewish men and so on and so forth, that's not a part of the original. The longer ending of Mark is not a part of the original. 1 John 5:7, where it says there are three in heaven that bear record, the Word, the Son, and God. That's not in the Bible as well. And you can find these at the bottom of the page of almost any modern translation of the Bible, because they show that the earlier manuscripts did not have this verse or that verse and so on. And later on, we have these things, and the reason why there's no problem is because we know how they came and why they're there. But the original says this. So Jesus did not actually say, Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Textual variant. Who the person who actually said that was a man named Stephen when he was stoned in Acts chapter 8. I think it was Acts chapter 8. Acts chapter 9. And he said, Lord, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. You find that in the book of Acts. Stephen, he said that, but Jesus didn't say it originally. And this is verifiable evidence. This is verifiable. You can do a simple Google search. Is that a textual variant? And you'll find that it is. So that's how I would answer that question. Huh?
I said, trust me, I believe you. Trust me. I don't have to look at trust me. I got you. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, so that's how I would answer that. However, if that verse was a part of the original, that would be a problem. That would be a problem, because there would be no way for me to reconcile all of this being a part of God's plan, but yet Jesus is saying something that could potentially go against that which was planned from eternity past. The crucifixion.
Wait a minute. So, did I just get you?
No, you would get me if that was a part of the original.
Wait. We were about to hang up, so let's leave it at that. I got you. and now we're gonna go our separate ways, right?
Okay, you got me. You got me. Let's say you got me.
Dude, I smoked you, bro. I s- can we leave it at that? Okay, I see what you're saying. Of course, that's not what he said, and if he did, it'd be a hard time to explain. I get that.
Yeah, it
I
would be a hard
understand. I
time.
understand.
So, as a upcoming Christian apologist, I have to know these things off the tip of my tongue, bam, like that, because these questions are important, and there's always a Dane out there who has hard questions and truly wants the answers. And what Christians tend to do is, hey, Dane, don't ask that question. Don't
Yep.
ask that question.
Yep. Yep.
Don't ask me
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
Don't ask me that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I've been there. I was a Dane too. I had questions, and I would hear
I mean,
the answers. Don't ask that question. So I had two options, Dane. Two options. Option A: leave Christianity because there is no answer to these questions, and these questions have to be answered if I'm going to be a Christian. That's option A. Option B: search out these answers for myself, and if there are answers, then I'm going to become a Christian or stay a Christian. And it turns out that there's an answer for every question that I had. And Christianity is consistent, it's logical, it's true. And when you do internal critiques of Christianity, it stands on its feet, doesn't fall, has a good foundation. Yeah, and you have to look at this from a critical
and,
perspective.
and my ignorant ass took option A, and then I met you.
And we have each other's numbers, and we can do this again and again and again.
Damn good answer. See, fuck, you're good. You're good. Okay. Again, if I call you out of the blue in the future, don't get weirded out.
I'll know it's you. I got your number saved.
Okay.
I'll be
Okay.
like, it's Dane the psychologist. I'm gonna say, hey Dane, and I'm
Okay.
looking forward to meeting
Okay.
your family. We can probably do something on Skype, maybe Zoom, if you want to do
We'll
like
figure it out. I mean, even
yeah
if I call you or text you, we'll figure out how we're going to do it. Because I'm going to set you up with some of my hardcore friends.
yeah
All
yeah,
right,
and
and you're going to have a good time. Because I know the way I talk. I know I'm not. I know the way I talk, but I got some damn good fucking cutthroat killers, and we can go toe to toe, and we
yeah
will.
yeah.
If it's tomorrow or fucking 6 years from now, we'll talk.
It's coming. It's coming. And if your friends are anything like you regarding being civil, being kind, being nice, we're gonna have a good conversation because we didn't go for each other's throats. We just talked about ideologies and perspectives and conceptual frameworks, and it was fun. It was fun, and I'm glad I could
Very
answer the questions
civil.
for you.
Yeah, yeah, very civil, very kind. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, of course, of course,
Yeah.
of course.
All right, so
But
I'm gonna
still,
get
still, fuck
to
you.
I gotta write my sermon now, so I'm gonna go write my sermon for tomorrow. Got to preach
You're,
tomorrow.
you're
Yeah,
still gonna do the sermon. Damn.
yeah. It's not hard because it's only 3 pages, and most of it is like is extemporaneous. I'm basically typing out a roadmap to go into the pulpit with.
And it's only 3 pages, so
Yeah,
you'll be all
yeah, three
right.
pages. Yeah, well, with a 14 font size, so it's big words, 3 pages. Bada boom, bada bang, all done.
God. I'm not gonna say anything else. I'm not gonna say anything
Thank you,
else.
Dane. Thank you.
Again, I'm flattered. The pleasure is mine. And when I tell you I'm not kissing your ass, this has been an experience of a lifetime. Really, it has been an experience of a lifetime. My man will cross paths again, and I can't wait. And Lord knows that when I get off the call with you, who the hell else am I gonna talk to on Monkey after this? Whatever happens on Monkey, it's like who the fuck am I gonna talk to now?
Well, I'm glad we could
Okay,
have this conversation. And it was an important conversation too. Thank you,
it's
Dane.
a very important conversation.
You have a good
Okay,
night.
my man. You too. Thank you. Thank you. Nice meeting you. Take care, man. Take care, man.
Take care.
I love you, man.
I love you too, bro.
See you later, man.
Take it easy.
I love you more.
Oh boy. A good convo, and we're done. We're done.